So, what is next for the San Antonio Spurs? If you take a step back, and I know they lost in 5 games to the New York Knicks, but they went from winning 34 games to 60 games. They went from not making the playoffs to making the NBA Finals. And we just look at it from that perspective, it was a great season for them. Now, obviously, there's expectations going into NBA Finals. Of course, there would be. You're at the grand stage and you have one of the best, if not the best player in the world right now, Victor Wembanyama. You also beat the defending champs in their building in a game 7. So of course the expectation was there, and you had home court in the NBA Finals, but lost in 5 games to the New York Knicks. What is the focus in San Antonio going into the offseason? There's been a lot of talks about De'Aaron Fox. We understand how bad he was in the finals. Some of it was the ankle injury. Other plays were just really bad, like in game 4, where he went up for a layup instead of just dribbling the ball on the sideline and holding it to get 2 free throws to potentially put San Antonio up by 3 points, which could have led to a game 4 win. But of course, that didn't happen. And now the Spurs find themselves in the offseason where they're like, okay, what is our next steps? Now, if you're trying to eventually get off De'Aaron Fox's contract, well, if you look at the numbers here, he's going to get paid $49 million this upcoming season, $53 million the following year, 57, the third year of his contract, and his final year, $61 million, where he'll be 32 years old. By the time he is 33 years old, he'll be an unrestricted free agent. Now, if you look at it from the perspective of, okay, we want to move off Fox. Let's say decide to trade him. Well, you're going to put more of the pressure on Stephon Castle and Harper to make plays as the main ball handlers. And we saw Stephon Castle turn the ball over a lot in the playoffs. And maybe his best strength isn't quite playmaking quite yet. He needs more development in ball handling and making decisions. And sometimes that takes some time to develop. Like you saw with Jason Tatum in the 2022 playoff run. I think he had the most turnovers ever by a player. And he grew from that experience. But it took time for him to become a solid playmaker. You call him elite. He's really good now at that playmaking aspect. So it might take Harper and Castle 4 or 5 seasons before they reach their peak as playmakers. So if you move off of Fox and you now shift the ball handling down to them, maybe they're not ready yet and they need more development. Like Fox right now is more polished and developed, regardless of how we feel about how he performed in the NBA Finals. He is very comfortable with the ball. He's very comfortable with getting to his spots. And if you look at Castle and Harper, they're not quite there yet. They will be, but they might need 3 or 4 seasons to get to that level. So if you have a vet guard in Fox who can carry some of that burden, and let's just say his ankle is much better in the postseason, maybe we get a better performance from De'Aaron Fox. Again, I'm not trying to make excuses, but I'm saying maybe he will benefit from having an offseason where he's, getting more experience with the Spurs, also more experience in the playoffs. I know he is the vet of this team, but at the same time, he's never been in the NBA Finals. So maybe Fox bounces back. We've seen players just fall to their faces in the playoffs and they rebound a year later or down the road. On top of that, it might take the Spurs a few seasons before they break through to win the championship. You can't skip steps when you're trying to reach the mountaintop. So there's no guarantee that the San Antonio Spurs are going to be right back here in the NBA Finals next year. Look at the history of the past 8 champions. The Denver Nuggets, they made the second round, lost the Blazers in 7 games. I think it was that 2018-19 season. A year later, they made the Western Conference Finals. Then it took them 4 seasons before they broke through and won the championship. I know Jamal Murray had some injuries, but it took Denver some time. Then you look at the Boston Celtics. They broke through to make the NBA Finals in 2022. 2 seasons later, they won the championship. So there's no guarantee you'll be back in this position next year because you can't forget Harper, Wemby, Castle are still really young and they are still developing as basketball players. You can't expect Stephon Castle to be an automatic knockdown 3-point shooter by next year. Yes, he shot 35% from 3, but in the playoffs, he really struggled from there. Also, he's still developing with his shot creation, and maybe that would take him 3 or 4 seasons to reach the peak of his powers. Victor Wembanyama, he's got to get better at a go-to move, and that might take him 2 or 3 seasons to reach his peak. Also, on top of that, you look at Dylan Harper. I think he's going to be phenomenal, but remember, he's 20 years old. So they might have to go through some more growing pains. There's no guarantee you're going to get out of the Western Conference next year because we know OKC has the 12th pick and the 17th pick. So they're going to look at their roster and go, we need to match up with the San Antonio Spurs. So we're going to target big, long wings and guards who can handle the physicality of Castle, Harper, and Champagny, and so on and so forth. So if I'm the Spurs, Now look at the roster. If I trade Fox, you can make that move by all means necessary if you feel like, eventually he's going to be gone anyways. However, you do take a risk because now you put the pressure on Castle and Harper to be your primary ball handlers, and maybe they need more development time. So there's no guarantee when they get back to the playoffs next year because they're going to be in pressure situations again that Harper and Castle are ready for that moment. Remember, Jalen Brown, like he struggled with dribbling in his left hand, and I think he's got much better. Jason Tatum, another great example. He had the most turnovers in the playoffs in 2022, but he got better as a playmaker. And that was, I think, their fourth time together in the playoffs. So again, these guys take time to develop. So we can't expect the Spurs to automatically win a championship next year. You also have to have injury luck on your side. So let's say the Thunder are healthier next year because remember, J-Dub and AJ Mitchell didn't miss the rest of that series, I think after game 3, if I'm not mistaken. And if they have those guys back and you've added around the margins, the Thunder have more depth. And the Spurs just might not be ready. And you have to expect SGA to get a little bit stronger so he can handle the physicality when he's driving to the mid range and trying to get his shots and create off the dribble and handle guys like Castle and Harper and even Carter Bryant, those physical guards and forwards. So if I'm the Spurs and I'm looking at the draft, maybe you target a Yaxo Lendenberg. Now he's expected to be drafted by the Hornets at 14th. So maybe you call up Charlotte and say, hey, like, let's move up in the draft. Or maybe you target the Warriors. I think they draft 11th, and maybe you can get their 11th pick so you can get Yaxo. And I think that's a great fit because they need a girthy 6'8" wing, like a Aaron Gordon prototype, because they're putting all this pressure on Victor to be a rim protector. But when he comes off the court, you bring in Luke Cornett, who is serviceable, who's brought a lot of value to this roster. Their rim protection is very weak because now you're relying on guys like Champagnie, who's too skinny. You're looking at Castle and Harper, who are better at guarding the perimeter. So you need to find a guy who can, crash the glass, and maybe Carter Bryant becomes that guy for them. But I think another wing who's at that size who can provide some resistance at the rim with shot blocking or just challenging shots like your OG Anunoby. We saw when Harper and Castle tried to score on him, he was just really locked in and did a good job of rim protection and blocking shots. So that's the type of guy I'm targeting if I'm San Antonio, and improve around the margins. Now, remember, this is going to take time. So if they don't win the championship next year, you don't freak out. You don't panic. You keep developing. And I trust the Spurs organization to build a contender. They've shown in the past with Tim Duncan, David Robinson, they'll be just fine. I love the ceiling of Dylan Harper. I think he's only going to get better. But if you keep a guy like Fox on this roster, I know he had a rough NBA Finals. And he wasn't that great on this playoff run, but he did have the ankle injury. I'm not going to put everything on the injury because he did make some really bad plays, especially down the stretch in game 4. But having Fox stabilizes things for guys like Harper and Castle, who might need 3 or 4 more seasons to be confident with getting to their spots and scoring off the dribble and being reliable jump shooters. Fox is already there in the mid-range. He's confident. He knows where he wants to go. He just had a bad show in the playoffs. But what if he bounces back and he's averaging 18 points in the playoffs and he plays better in the NBA Finals? Well, that provides a lot of value for the Spurs roster. And then you add a Aaron Gordon prototype. Now you're like, okay, we got everything we need. And the other thing I want to see from the Spurs is Wembanyama. He cannot play 29 minutes a night anymore. They got to get him to 35 minutes a night. Now, I understand the blood clots might have been the reason why they wanted to conserve his minutes, but they need him at 35 to 38 minutes a night to get him ready for the playoffs, because there were games where he didn't look like he was, having energy. He looked tired and exhausted. That's something they need to work on. Also, Wemby needs a go-to move where he can pull up from 15 feet and just shoot right over the defender. And they need to develop better chemistry between Wemby and the guards. Now, I understand they're young. So if I'm Harper, I'm Castle, I'm Fox, I'm working on pick and roll offense with Wemby all offseason long and throwing lobs to the rim. Just working on that timing, that chemistry. You get up to speed together. And if you can figure out how to just find him in the paint more successfully, because that was something the Spurs struggled with during the regular season. There would be times where Fox would just go in isolation, or Harper and Castro, and they would just ignore Wemby. He wouldn't get a touch at all. I think that's something the Spurs offense needs to work on. So if I'm looking at San Antonio, obviously I'm not freaking out. They just made the NBA Finals. They had a great season. They just ran into a better basketball team. The Knicks were just a terrible matchup for the Spurs. But it's a great learning experience. And if Wemby can just get better in the mid-range area, I don't think he'll be this physical, like, get me down the block and give me the ball. I don't think he'll be that type of player. I think he would be more perimeter oriented. However, if he can have a really good mid-range area, we can get to a spot and shoot right over the defense. And then the Spurs guards have much better chemistry with finding him for lobs. That offense is going to be scarier. So yeah, the Spurs, they're in fine shape. I just think add a more physical forward to provide some rim protection and rebounding and not put that burden all on Cornet, Champagne, Castle. Like, just have more versatility. The Spurs are not that far. I mean, they just made the NBA Finals. But yeah, they are in prime position to be contending. And let's just say next year they don't win the championship. Let's say Fox has a good showing. Maybe then you trade him because now you get another year under your belt with Harper and Castle, with a deep playoff run, and Wemby with a deep playoff run that you unload Fox's contract so you can have more flexibility with improving around the margins. Those are my thoughts, though. Hope you guys enjoyed this video today. What do you guys think the Spurs need to work on this offseason? Do you think they're going to win the championship next season? Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you on the next one.